Hey everyone, this is Catherine speaking. I am a European American woman with short blonde hair. Today I have it pulled back. I am wearing an eggplant or aubergine dress with a white wall behind me. And I am really excited to talk about my top 10 tips for conquering your annual review. Tip number 1 is to have regular one-on-one meetings with your manager and also their manager. So that might be your director on your team, or maybe it's just your manager's manager, whoever is the next level up. Make sure that you're having a regular one-on-one with each of them. So I do mine every other week. You could do yours monthly, whatever works for you, but something that is on a regular basis. The reason why you want to do that is because 1, you don't want to wait until the annual review to tell them all the things that you are doing. It's too much information. 2, you may not have the opportunity to share all that you're doing inside of the performance review meeting, or sometimes the annual review isn't even a meeting. It's just filling out a form and writing down feedback for yourself, and then your manager writing down feedback for you. And the third piece of that is you don't want to get to your annual review and realize that all the work you did this past year doesn't match what your performance is being measured against. So by constantly having regular check-ins, you can share your career goals, your work that you're doing, whatever blockers you have. You can ask for feedback. You can see how you can best support your manager, which is always a kind thing to do. And also just make sure that you're on the right track. Tip number 2 is to track your tasks. So the way that I do this is I have a OneNote document. It's a digital document where I can create new pages, and I do this for each and every week. And on that page, I fill out a table. On the left-hand side, it has the project name. On the right-hand side, it has a long list of all the tasks that are associated with that project. It could be an email I need to send, something that I need to follow up on, a ticket that I need to review. Doesn't matter what the task is, they're just all listed in there. The reason why this is valuable for your annual review, not just checking your daily tasks, is because you can then go back and look at those 52 pages or so and see, what did I actually do this year? Because we're not going to remember. We often forget what happened yesterday or what we're doing later today. And so by having that documented, it's an easy and quick way to understand what you did, and it's something you can quickly copy and paste into another document that you could share later on with your manager. Tip number 3 is to know the priority levels and stakeholders involved in every project. So in OneNote, above my task table, I have another table that lists every project, the key stakeholders, the priority level, the desired outcomes, and how those outcomes are being measured. That does a couple of things for me. Number 1, it allows me to have a high-level overview of the different priority projects and at a glance understand, am I working on harder and harder projects over time or not? Now, the way that I'm defining harder is sometimes the way a business defines a project is more important. It means it has a higher priority. The stakeholders are probably higher up in the company. There's probably more money to be made or saved by the completion of this project, and so therefore it's a bigger and more important desired outcome. Now, as a quick note, just because a project is higher priority doesn't mean that it's the right work for you. In fact, if your long-term goal is different than the company's, then if you're working on higher priority projects, it might actually pull you away from your goal, and lower priority projects might actually help you in the long run. The reason is what the company is prioritizing may not actually match what your priorities are. Now, you probably don't want to have a lot of dissonance between what the company wants and what you want, so that might mean you find somewhere else where you can better align those priorities. Either way, this table is a really good way for me to assess the caliber of the projects that I'm working on. I can take this information and use it in my annual review conversations by saying, hey, look, these are the kinds of things that I was working on. It had this desired outcome. We got close to, matched, exceeded that outcome by X amount. It affected these stakeholders, and that gives some signaling as to how well you were performing and what kind of projects you were on and what the company trusts you and your team, your manager trusts you to do. The fourth tip is to know thyself and tell thy manager. So what that means is it is so important to know, what are your career goals? What skills do you want to learn? What's your mission statement? Are you someone who's trying to become a leader, a people manager? Do you want to be an individual contributor? Do you want to dive really, really deep and become a specialist or an SME, subject matter expert, in a particular area, whether it be design or development or any other career field? So do you want to be skill-based? Do you want to be people-based? Do you want to be a visionary? Those are all things that are important for you to know and communicate to your manager. So don't keep them inside, because if you keep them inside, no one's going to know. These have to be communicated. Now, there are some challenges or insecurities that may come up around communicating that with your manager, especially if you don't have a solid relationship. It might seem very vulnerable to share these things. That's why you have those one-on-ones regularly, and one-on-ones regularly with your director. Maybe you have a better relationship with them and they can help you out there. If it's just not working out, obviously, you might need to be on a different team with a different manager. But in the end, a manager's job is literally to help you get where you want to go, inside the company and ideally outside the company as well. The best managers don't just want to see you succeed in this current role, but they want you to succeed inside your career. And everyone knows the unspoken truth that everyone you hire is going to move on at some point in time. Whether it's next year, in 10 years, 20 years, at some point they're going to go somewhere else. And you want, as a manager, to be preparing them the best that you can. So establish that relationship, have those regular check-ins, and tell them, what are your goals? What are your big dreams that may not even have to do with the industry that you're in or the company that you're at, but that you're working towards over the next couple of decades? They might be able to help you get there even faster. Tip number 5 is to complete a weekly assessment. Underneath my table of tasks, I have my final section in OneNote where I put my mission statement, my desired outcome from my time at my current job, what my big dreams are, and who I know myself to be. This keeps me grounded in my mission. Then the last part is a weekly assessment of what I'm proud of, what I did well, and what I can work on next week. The first reason for doing this is I'm not very good at celebrating my wins, and so this helps me do that, right? I have to write it down every single week and think about what went well. Then it also sets me up to grow and do even better in the week to come because I'm thinking about what didn't go as I wanted or as planned. Then this is super easy to use during your annual review because you can literally go through all of the different weeks, quickly pull out what were your wins. You can derive from there your biggest accomplishments and share those with your team. An important thing to be noting in some of the larger wins are metrics. And that takes us to the 6th tip: gather data. Product managers, business analysts on the project that you're working on often are tracking views, errors, inquiries, user feedback, opportunities won, dollars made, so on. They have that data because they have to have that data. That's part of their job in order to prove that the product is working well or that it's not and it needs some improvements. And then maybe if you're a developer, you're coming onto that team making those changes. So go to them and request data for the project that you're working on. If you revamped a product, then ask for what that data was before you revamped it and then what it is now. Include all of those as part of your wins and as part of your major accomplishments. Tip number 7 is to keep a celebration log, or what's often called a brag book. Basically, it's a document that you keep for yourself with all of your biggest accomplishments, wins, and for me, I also include moments of appreciation from other people. So if I got a shout out, if someone messaged me to let me know that they really appreciated my work, all of those different things are in there to demonstrate how I made impact, not in a numerical way, in a quantitative way, but rather in a qualitative way. Next, number 8 is to ask for peer feedback. Do this about a quarter before your annual review, so that way people have enough time to really reflect and write out a good letter of feedback or recommendation, whatever term you want to use. It basically allows them to say, what is it like working with you? What are ways that they've seen you grow? And what's the impact that you had, either quantitatively or qualitatively? Ask them for permission to share this with your manager, and if they don't want to be named, if they want it to be anonymous, then you can generalize it and say, I worked on a team and people have seen me grown in X ways. I've heard from my colleagues that they really appreciate Y about me. So use those general statements or the specific feedback, whichever one is most appropriate, to demonstrate to your manager what your peers think about you as well. That helps to reinforce how you're performing. Number 9 is to update your LinkedIn. So oftentimes we let the experience section of our LinkedIn go stale when we're not looking for a job or we don't have a new position. But I would highly recommend go to that section at the end of every year, and if you're having semi-annual reviews, then do it every 6 months, and update your current position on your LinkedIn profile. Sit down, include metrics, make sure that your current projects are on there. Obviously, don't disclose company-specific information, but you can give a general sense of what you're doing. And really, this is more for you than anyone else to remind yourself and to document all the great work that you're doing. All right, number 10 is pitch yourself. Annual reviews look different across different companies. Some people get to meet in person, some people have to fill out a form. But either way, make sure you get a meeting with your manager and their manager. That's why we do regular meetings, to show them either verbally on slides in a document all that you've done throughout the year. Don't just fill out a form and check that box of, okay, I've submitted what I need to submit for my annual review. Don't do it. Meet with them in person additionally and say, look, here's what I've done. I'd like to present to you my personal evaluation of the ways that I've grown, the things that I've done, and how that impacts or changes my long-term career goals. This is an important conversation. Make sure that you have that. And if you're coming to a new company, here's your bonus tip. If you're coming into a new company during the interviews, ask them when is their annual review cycle. And if you're coming in just a few weeks or a few months before that happens, ask them how they're going to evaluate your performance. Not only will that tell you what you need to do in your onboarding time and your first couple months at that company, but it's going to show you what they value. Those were my top 10 tips for conquering your annual review. I hope that that was helpful. If you have any more tips, put them in the comments below. If you have questions, you can put those there as well. Let's create opportunity for ourselves and others to really find success in this annual performance review. Serve widely, give greatly, and take care, y'all.